If you are over 60, there is something important you need to understand. Some of the most dangerous health risks do not begin with severe pain, a dramatic collapse, or an obvious medical emergency. They often begin with something small. A moment of dizziness when you stand up. A morning when you wake up feeling exhausted even though you slept for 8 hours. A change in your body that feels too personal or embarrassing to mention. Or a daily habit that you have followed for years because you believed it was healthy. That is exactly what happened to Michael Turner. Michael was 68 years old and considered himself fairly healthy. He walked around his neighborhood almost every morning. He took his prescription medications on schedule. He tried to control his weight, and he made an effort to choose foods and drinks that seemed good for his heart. From the outside, Michael appeared to be doing everything correctly. But one morning, shortly after getting out of bed, the room suddenly seemed to move beneath him. His legs felt weak. His vision became slightly blurred, and he had to grab the edge of a nearby table to stop himself from falling. A few seconds later, the sensation passed. Michael did what many adults over 60 would do. He took a deep breath and told himself, "I'm getting older. This is probably normal." But what if it was not simply age? What if several ordinary habits were quietly working against him? My name is Dr. James Carter, and today I want to discuss 5 common habits and overlooked warning signs that deserve more attention after the age of 60. These are not rare behaviors. Millions of older adults do them every day without realizing that they may increase the risk of medication side effects, poor sleep, weakness, falls, dehydration, or cardiovascular problems. The purpose of this conversation is not to frighten you. It is to help you recognize changes early, ask better questions, and avoid dismissing every new symptom as an unavoidable part of growing older. Because aging does change the body. Your muscles may become weaker, your metabolism may slow down, your thirst signals may become less reliable, your sleep may change, and your body may react differently to medications or missed meals. But that does not mean every episode of dizziness, every night of poor sleep, or every new physical change should automatically be ignored. Sometimes your body is giving you useful information. You simply need to know how to interpret it. The first habit we will discuss involves something many people do every morning. It looks healthy, it feels harmless, and in many cases, it is done with the best intentions. The second habit may affect your breathing for hours while you are asleep. The third is often used as a weight loss strategy, even though it may leave an older adult weaker and more vulnerable to falling. The fourth warning sign is one that many people never mention to their doctor because it involves a very private part of life. Yet in some cases, it can reveal changes in circulation long before more obvious symptoms appear. And the fifth habit involves waiting for a signal that may no longer be as dependable as it once was. As we go through these 5 points, remember that one symptom does not automatically mean that something serious is wrong. The real concern is a new pattern that continues, becomes more frequent, or begins interfering with your daily life. Michael did not need to panic, but he did need to stop assuming that every change was simply old age. And the first place he needed to look was at the way he was taking his medication. Picture a common morning routine. You wake up, prepare breakfast, place your prescription tablets on the table, and reach for a glass of juice. Perhaps it is orange juice, perhaps it is apple juice, or perhaps it is grapefruit juice because you have heard that grapefruit contains vitamins and may support a healthy diet. It seems like a sensible choice. After all, fruit juice sounds healthier than soda, and swallowing medication with juice may feel easier than taking it with plain water. But depending on the medication, the drink you choose may matter more than you realize. Grapefruit and grapefruit juice contain natural compounds that can interfere with certain enzymes in the digestive system. These enzymes normally help the body process and break down some medications. When their activity is reduced, the medication may remain in your bloodstream at a higher level, or for a longer period than expected. In other cases, grapefruit may affect proteins involved in moving medication into the body, which can change how much of the drug is absorbed. The exact effect depends on the medication. That is why it is important not to assume that every medicine reacts in the same way. Some cholesterol-lowering medicines can be affected. Certain medications used for blood pressure, heart rhythm, anxiety, organ transplantation, and other conditions may also interact with grapefruit. However, many medications do not have this interaction at all. The danger comes from not knowing which category your prescription belongs to. For some people, an interaction may increase the chance of dizziness, weakness, muscle problems, unusually low blood pressure, or other side effects. The symptoms may not appear immediately after drinking the juice. They may develop gradually or seem unrelated to the morning routine. That is one reason these interactions are easy to overlook. Michael had been taking one of his medications with grapefruit juice several mornings each week. He believed the juice was helping him make a healthier choice. Over time, he began experiencing occasional lightheadedness, especially when standing up soon after breakfast. He never connected the two. Instead, he blamed his age, his sleep, or the fact that he had not exercised enough. This is an important lesson. When a new symptom appears, do not only ask, what illness could be causing this? Also ask, has anything changed in the way I take my medication? Perhaps you changed the time of day. Perhaps you began taking it without food. Perhaps you added a new supplement. Or perhaps you started swallowing it with a drink that can affect the way your body handles the drug. The safest step is not to stop the medication on your own. Suddenly discontinuing a prescription can be far more dangerous than the interaction you are worried about. Instead, review each medication with a pharmacist or healthcare professional. You can ask one very simple question. Should I avoid grapefruit, fruit juice, supplements, or any specific foods while taking this medication? It is also worth reading the pharmacy label and the information sheet that comes with your prescription. Warnings about food or drink interactions are often written there, but many people never look at them. If the instructions say to take the medication with water, the safest approach is usually to follow those instructions unless your healthcare provider tells you otherwise. And remember that grapefruit is not only found in a breakfast glass. It may appear in mixed fruit drinks, flavored beverages, marmalades, supplements, or products that do not immediately look like grapefruit juice. You do not need to become afraid of fruit. You simply need to understand that healthy foods can still interact with medication. Natural does not automatically mean risk-free, especially when several prescriptions are involved. This becomes even more important after 60 because many adults take more than one medication. The more prescriptions, over-the-counter products, and supplements you combine, the more difficult it becomes to predict interactions without professional guidance. A medication review can help identify duplicate treatments, unnecessary supplements, timing problems, and combinations that may contribute to dizziness or weakness. That conversation may take only a few minutes, but it could prevent a fall, an injury, or a serious medication complication. Michael's morning drink was something he could see and change. The next habit was much harder to notice. It was happening while he was unconscious, several hours every night, and it may have been affecting the amount of oxygen reaching his body. In the next part, we need to talk about what your sleeping position may be doing to your airway. Let's continue with something that happens every single night. Most people never think twice about how they sleep. After all, once you're asleep, right? Not necessarily. For decades, many people were told that sleeping flat on their back was one of the healthiest sleeping positions. And for many adults, that advice is still perfectly reasonable. But after the age of 60, your body begins to change in ways that aren't always obvious. The muscles throughout your body naturally lose some strength with age. That includes the muscles surrounding your throat and upper airway. During the day, those muscles help keep your airway open while you breathe, talk, and swallow. At night, however, everything relaxes. If you happen to sleep on your back, gravity can allow the tongue and surrounding soft tissues to move slightly backward. For some people, especially those who already have a narrow airway or other risk factors, breathing may become partially blocked during sleep. That doesn't mean everyone who sleeps on their back will develop a problem, but it does explain why some adults begin snoring much louder than they used to. Others may briefly stop breathing without ever realizing it. Some people wake up gasping for air. Others never remember waking up at all. Instead, they simply get out of bed feeling exhausted. I've met many older adults who tell me exactly the same thing. Doctor, I sleep 7 or 8 hours every night, but I still feel tired before lunch. They assume they just need more coffee, or they blame their age. But poor quality sleep can affect far more than your energy level. When your breathing repeatedly slows or stops during the night, oxygen levels may drop over and over again. Your brain notices. Your heart notices. Your blood vessels notice. Instead of enjoying several hours of uninterrupted rest, your body may be working much harder than you realize. Over time, untreated sleep apnea has been associated with high blood pressure, heart rhythm problems, stroke, memory difficulties, and excessive daytime sleepiness. That doesn't mean every person who snores has sleep apnea, nor does it mean everyone who wakes up tired has a dangerous sleep disorder. The important point is recognizing when several warning signs begin appearing together. For example, do you snore loudly enough that someone else has mentioned it? Has your partner ever noticed long pauses in your breathing? Do you wake up with a dry mouth or a headache? Do you frequently feel sleepy while watching television or reading during the day? Do you find yourself struggling to concentrate even after what seemed like a full night's sleep? These are the kinds of changes worth discussing with your healthcare provider. One of the biggest mistakes I see is assuming that constant fatigue is simply another birthday present. Growing older does not automatically mean you should feel exhausted every day. Your body may be trying to tell you that your sleep is no longer as restorative as it once was. Michael never thought his snoring mattered. His wife had mentioned it for years. Sometimes she even noticed long periods of silence before he suddenly took a deep breath. Michael laughed it off. "I've always snored." But after learning more about sleep apnea, he finally decided to mention it during a routine appointment. His doctor recommended further evaluation. The goal wasn't to prove something was wrong. The goal was to find out why he was waking up tired every single morning. Remember, good sleep is not measured only by the number of hours you spend in bed. It is measured by how well your body is able to recover while you're there. If you regularly wake up feeling refreshed, that's encouraging. If you constantly wake up exhausted despite getting enough sleep, don't automatically blame your age. Ask why. Sometimes the answer is surprisingly treatable. Now let's move from something that happens while you're asleep to something many older adults intentionally do every day because they believe it will improve their health. Ironically, it may be doing exactly the opposite. Let's talk about skipping meals. Many adults over 60 decide it's finally time to lose a few pounds. That's a reasonable goal. Maintaining a healthy weight can support your joints, improve mobility, and reduce the risk of several chronic diseases. The problem isn't wanting to lose weight. The problem is how some people try to do it. One of the most common approaches is simply eating less and less until meals begin disappearing altogether. Perhaps breakfast is skipped, then lunch becomes optional. Eventually, the body spends long periods without receiving enough fuel. At first, it may seem like progress. The number on the scale moves down. Clothes fit a little differently. Everything appears to be working. But inside the body, a different story may be developing. As we get older, maintaining muscle becomes increasingly important. Muscle helps you stand up from a chair. It helps you climb stairs. It protects your balance. And perhaps most importantly, it helps prevent falls. When older adults consistently eat too little, especially too little protein, the body may gradually lose muscle along with fat. Unfortunately, muscle is much harder to rebuild after 60 than it was decades earlier. Skipping meals can also make it more difficult to maintain stable energy throughout the day. For some people, especially those with diabetes or those taking medications that lower blood sugar, going many hours without eating may increase the likelihood of feeling shaky, weak, dizzy, or confused. Even people without diabetes sometimes notice that they become unusually irritable, tired, or lightheaded after missing several meals. Have you ever stood up quickly and suddenly felt as though the room shifted for a moment? Maybe you blamed your age. Maybe you thought you simply stood up too fast. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes your body is telling you it needs better nourishment. Michael began skipping lunch because he wanted to lose the extra weight around his waist. For several weeks, he was pleased with the results. Then he noticed something unexpected. By late afternoon, he felt unusually tired. Walking up the stairs required more effort. Occasionally, he became slightly dizzy when getting out of his chair. None of those changes seemed serious by themselves. Together, however, they painted a different picture. Healthy weight loss after 60 isn't about eating as little as possible. It's about giving your body enough nutrition while avoiding unnecessary excess. That usually means balanced meals instead of missed meals. Protein to support muscle, fiber to support digestion, healthy fats. whole grains when appropriate, and enough calories to keep your body functioning properly. If your goal is weight loss, reducing portion sizes is often a safer long-term strategy than regularly skipping meals. Eating at consistent times may also help some people avoid becoming overly hungry later in the day when unhealthy choices are often easiest to make. If you have diabetes, kidney disease, or another medical condition requiring a special eating plan, speak with your healthcare provider or a registered dietitian before making significant changes to your diet. The right eating pattern should fit your medical needs, not someone else's social media advice. Remember, success isn't measured by how hungry you can tolerate becoming. It's measured by whether your body grows stronger, more energetic, and more capable over time. Michael eventually realized that losing muscle was never part of his plan. He wanted better health, not simply a lower number on the scale. Changing the way he approached food gave him more energy than he expected. But the next warning sign surprised him even more. It wasn't related to what he ate. It wasn't related to how he slept. It involved a subject that many adults avoid discussing altogether. And yet, in some cases, it may reveal changes inside the body years before more obvious symptoms appear. Let's talk about your intimate health after 60. There is one subject many adults over 60 will discuss with almost anyone, except the person who may be able to help them most, their doctor. Changes in intimate health are often treated as something private, embarrassing, or too uncomfortable to mention. Some people assume these changes are simply part of aging. Others feel ashamed and remain silent for years. But intimate health is not separate from the rest of the body. It can be influenced by circulation, hormones, nerves, medications, sleep, stress, blood sugar, and emotional well-being. That is why a new or persistent change may sometimes offer useful information about overall health. Let us begin with men. Difficulty achieving or maintaining an erection is common, especially with age. But common does not mean meaningless. An erection depends on several systems working together. The brain sends signals through the nerves. The blood vessels must relax and allow enough blood to enter. Hormones help support desire and function. The heart and circulation must provide adequate blood flow. If any part of that process is disrupted, erectile difficulties may appear. Sometimes the cause is temporary. Stress, exhaustion, anxiety, relationship difficulties, or alcohol can all play a role. Certain prescription medications may also affect sexual function. Diabetes can damage nerves and blood vessels over time. Low testosterone, neurological conditions, and prostate treatments may contribute as well. But one possible cause deserves special attention: blood vessel disease. The arteries that supply blood to the penis are relatively small. Because of their size, reduced blood flow may sometimes become noticeable there, before it causes more obvious symptoms elsewhere. This does not mean that every man with erectile dysfunction has heart disease. It also does not mean that one difficult experience is a medical emergency. The concern is a repeated change that is new, unexplained, or gradually becoming worse. For some men, that change may be an early reason to review blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, medication use, and cardiovascular risk. Michael had noticed changes in his intimate health several months earlier. At first, he blamed stress, then he blamed age. He avoided discussing it with his wife and said nothing during his regular checkup. He was more comfortable talking about his knees, his sleep, and even his digestion than mentioning this one problem. But silence did not help him understand the cause. It only delayed the conversation. Many men respond by purchasing products online, using unregulated supplements, or borrowing medication from someone else. That can be dangerous. Some products may contain undeclared ingredients. Others may interact with heart or blood pressure medications. Drugs used for erectile dysfunction can be unsafe when combined with certain nitrate medications because the combination may cause a serious drop in blood pressure. The safest first step is not secrecy or self-treatment. It is an honest medical discussion. Now, let us talk about women, because intimate changes after menopause are also frequently ignored. As estrogen levels decline, the tissues of the vagina and urinary tract may become thinner, drier, and more sensitive. Some women experience dryness, burning, itching, irritation, or pain during intimacy. Others notice urinary urgency, discomfort while urinating, or repeated urinary tract infections. These symptoms are sometimes grouped under the term genitourinary syndrome of menopause. The name may sound complicated, but the experience is common and often treatable. Unfortunately, many women never ask for help. They may believe discomfort is something they simply have to accept. They may feel that sexual health is no longer important after a certain age, or they may worry that discussing it will seem inappropriate. But pain, dryness, and urinary symptoms can affect sleep, confidence, relationships, and daily quality of life. They deserve the same attention as any other health concern. Changes in intimate function can also be linked to conditions beyond menopause. Diabetes can affect sensation and blood flow. Thyroid disorders may influence energy, mood, and sexual desire. Chronic pain can make intimacy difficult. Depression and anxiety can reduce interest and physical response. Poor sleep can affect hormones and emotional connection. Medications used for blood pressure, mood disorders, pain, or other conditions may contribute as well. This is why the goal should never be to assume one cause. It should be to look at the whole picture. When did the change begin? Was it sudden or gradual? Did it appear after starting a new medication? Is there pain, bleeding, urinary difficulty, fatigue, or another symptom? Has there also been a change in exercise tolerance, breathing, or energy? These details can help a healthcare professional understand what needs to be evaluated. The connection with cardiovascular health is especially important after menopause. Before menopause, estrogen provides some protective effects on blood vessels. As estrogen declines, the risk of cardiovascular disease tends to rise. This does not mean that every intimate symptom is related to the heart, but it does mean that sexual and urinary changes should not be treated as isolated or irrelevant. They may be part of a broader health picture that includes blood pressure, cholesterol, circulation, and metabolic health. The most important message is simple. Do not allow embarrassment to hide information that may help protect your health. Doctors and nurses discuss these concerns regularly. To them, this is not shameful. It is medical information. You do not need to give a long explanation. You can begin with one direct sentence. I have noticed a change in my sexual or urinary health, and I would like to understand what may be causing it. That is enough to begin. Michael eventually asked that question. The conversation led to a broader review of his medications, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, and circulation. The result was not panic. It was clarity. And clarity gave him the opportunity to make safer decisions. But there was still one habit he had not considered. It seemed much simpler than medication, sleep, or circulation. Michael believed he could rely on his body to tell him exactly when to act. He waited until he felt thirsty before drinking water. After 60, that signal may arrive later than you think. Thirst feels like one of the most basic signals in the human body. You feel thirsty, so you drink. It sounds simple. But as people grow older, the sensation of thirst may become less sensitive. The body can begin losing fluid before the mind clearly recognizes the need to drink. That means an older adult may already be mildly dehydrated while still saying, "I'm not thirsty." This is one reason dehydration is easy to miss after 60. It does not always begin with intense thirst. It may begin with fatigue, a dry mouth, a dull headache, muscle cramps, darker urine, less frequent urination, difficulty concentrating, or a brief wave of dizziness when standing up. Each of these symptoms can have other causes, but when several appear together, hydration deserves consideration. Michael rarely drank water unless he felt genuinely thirsty. He also avoided drinking much before leaving home because he did not want to search for a bathroom. On days when he had appointments, he might go for several hours with only a small cup of coffee. He did not consider this dangerous. He believed his body would warn him if he needed more fluid, but his thirst signal was no longer as strong as it had been when he was younger. There are several reasons older adults may become dehydrated more easily. The kidneys may become less efficient at conserving water. Some people take diuretics, often called water pills, which increase urination. Others reduce fluid intake because of bladder problems, mobility limitations, or fear of incontinence. Hot weather, fever, vomiting, diarrhea, and long flights can increase fluid loss. Memory problems may cause a person to forget to drink. Weakness or arthritis may make it difficult to reach the kitchen or lift a bottle. Even a mild illness can quickly change fluid balance in someone who is already vulnerable. Dehydration affects more than the mouth. When fluid levels fall, the volume of blood circulating through the body may also decrease. Blood pressure can drop, particularly when standing. The heart may beat faster to compensate. A person may feel weak, unstable, or confused. In older adults, sudden confusion is sometimes mistaken for dementia when dehydration or infection may be contributing. A fall can occur after only a few seconds of lightheadedness, and once a person falls, the consequences can be far more serious than the original fluid loss. That is why prevention matters. The goal is not to drink an enormous amount all at once. For many people, small amounts spread across the day are easier to tolerate. You might drink some water after waking, with meals, between meals, and during periods of activity. Keeping a bottle or glass in a visible place can help. Water-rich foods such as soup, fruit, vegetables, yogurt, and certain other foods may also contribute to fluid intake. The exact amount a person needs varies. Body size, temperature, activity, medications, and medical conditions all matter. Urine color can offer a general clue, although it is not a perfect test. Very dark urine may suggest that more fluid is needed. Clear urine all day does not necessarily mean that drinking more is always better. More is not always safer. This is especially important for people with heart failure, kidney disease, advanced liver disease, swelling, or a prescribed fluid restriction. Drinking too much water can be dangerous in those situations. If your doctor has given you a daily fluid limit, follow that plan rather than general advice from a video. Some people also need to be careful with beverages high in sugar, caffeine, or sodium. Coffee and tea can contribute to fluid intake, but they should not automatically replace water in every situation. Alcohol can increase dehydration and may also interact with medications. Sports drinks may contain more sugar or sodium than many older adults need. The simplest choice for most people is usually plain water, unless a healthcare professional recommends something different. There are situations when dehydration needs prompt medical attention. New confusion, fainting, severe weakness, inability to keep fluids down, very little urination, persistent vomiting, or ongoing diarrhea should not be ignored. A person who is unable to drink independently may also need assistance sooner than expected. The key is to respond before the situation becomes severe. Michael began making one practical change. Instead of waiting for thirst, he created a gentle routine. He drank a small glass after waking. He kept water nearby during the day. He drank with meals and carried a bottle when leaving home. He also asked his doctor whether his medications or health conditions required any special limits. The change was simple, but the principle was important. Do not wait for your body to shout when the early signal has become quieter. By this point, Michael had begun to see how the pieces fit together. His morning dizziness was not one isolated event. His medication routine, nighttime breathing, inconsistent meals, private health changes, and low fluid intake were all reasons to ask better questions. He did not need to fear his body. He needed to stop dismissing it. In the final part, I will show you what Michael changed, which lessons matter most, and how to recognize the difference between normal aging and a warning sign that deserves attention. Michael did not leave his doctor's office with one dramatic diagnosis that explained everything. He did not discover that every symptom came from the same cause, and he did not need to completely rebuild his life overnight. What changed was much simpler. He stopped treating every new problem as an unavoidable part of getting older. For the first time, he looked at his daily habits as a complete picture. He reviewed his medications with a pharmacist and asked which foods, drinks, and supplements could affect them. He spoke honestly about his snoring, morning headaches, and daytime fatigue instead of assuming poor sleep was normal at 68. He stopped skipping meals and began eating smaller, more balanced portions that helped him maintain energy and strength. He brought up the private health change he had been avoiding, which gave his doctor useful information about his circulation, medications, and overall cardiovascular risk. And he began drinking water regularly instead of waiting for a thirst signal that had become quieter with age. None of those actions was dramatic, but together they changed the way Michael responded to his body. That is the most important lesson from this entire conversation. After 60, your body may communicate differently than it did when you were younger. The signals may be less obvious. A serious issue may not begin with severe pain. It may begin with a change in energy, sleep, balance, appetite, urination, or sexual health. The problem is that many people have learned to dismiss those changes. They say, "It's only age." They say, "I don't want to complain." They say, "It will probably go away." Sometimes they are right. Bodies are not machines, and no one feels exactly the same every day. One episode of tiredness, one poor night of sleep, or one moment of dizziness does not automatically mean that something dangerous is happening. But a new pattern deserves attention when it continues, becomes more frequent, or begins affecting your ability to function safely. That is the difference between being aware and being afraid. Awareness says, "I have noticed something has changed." Fear says, "This must be the worst possible condition." You do not need to jump to the worst conclusion. You simply need to stop ignoring useful information. There are 5 questions I want you to remember. First, am I taking my medications exactly as instructed? And have I checked for food, drink, or supplement interactions? Second, am I truly sleeping well? Or am I only spending enough hours in bed? Third, am I giving my body enough nutrition to preserve muscle, balance, and mental clarity? Fourth, have I hidden a private health change because I felt embarrassed to discuss it? And fifth, am I drinking regularly? Or am I waiting until thirst becomes impossible to ignore? These questions are not designed to diagnose disease. They are designed to help you recognize when a conversation with a healthcare professional may be useful. There are also symptoms that should not wait for a routine appointment. Seek urgent medical care for chest pain, severe shortness of breath, fainting, sudden weakness on one side of the body, difficulty speaking, severe confusion, or a serious fall. Those are not symptoms to watch quietly at home. For less urgent changes, it can help to keep a simple record. Write down when the symptom happens. Notice whether it occurs after medication, during the night, after missing a meal, or when standing up. Record how long it lasts and whether it is becoming more frequent. Bring your medication and supplement list to your appointment. Small details can help your doctor identify patterns that may otherwise be missed. Michael's story is not important because he did everything perfectly. It is important because he made the same mistake many intelligent, responsible adults make. He believed that healthy intentions always produce healthy results. But drinking fruit juice with medication can still create an interaction. Spending 8 hours in bed does not guarantee healthy breathing. Eating less does not always protect strength. Ignoring intimate changes does not make them disappear. And waiting for thirst does not always prevent dehydration. Good health after 60 is not about following every trend or becoming afraid of every symptom. It is about paying closer attention to how your body responds. It is about asking questions before a small problem becomes a larger one. It is about understanding that protecting independence often depends on ordinary decisions made every day. The way you take your medicine, the way you sleep, the way you nourish your body, the symptoms you choose to mention, and the signals you decide not to ignore. Before we finish, think about the 5 habits we discussed. Which one surprised you the most? Was it the possible interaction between grapefruit and medication? The effect of nighttime breathing on daytime energy? The risk of losing muscle while trying to lose weight? The connection between intimate health and the rest of the body? Or the fact that thirst may become less reliable with age? Share your answer in the comments. Your experience may help another person recognize something they have been dismissing. And consider sharing this video with a parent, partner, sibling, or friend over 60. Sometimes people do not need a complicated medical explanation. They simply need someone to help them notice a pattern they have accepted for too long. If you find conversations like this helpful, subscribe so you can continue learning how to protect your strength, circulation, independence, and quality of life as you age. My name is Dr. James Carter. Remember this: your body rarely begins with a scream. It usually starts with a whisper. Learn to recognize those whispers and give your body the attention it deserves.